preached good news to the people. Gospel, as we know, means good news. And so I have some good news for you. Are you ready? You were made for joy. You were made for joy. Think about it. God is the author and the source of all joy. God has made us like himself. We're made in the image and likeness of God, and he has made us for himself. Ergo, we are made for joy. To be joyful, hopeful, peaceful. You were made for joy. On this third Sunday of Advent, we call it Gaudete Sunday. Gaudete is the Latin for rejoice. That's why I'm wearing these rose-colored vestments. Obviously, the church didn't ask for my opinion on that. But it's the symbol of joy, of rejoicing, of glad tidings. You know, Gaudete comes from the Roman Missal for the entrance antiphon. It's the first word of the entrance antiphon, which is from our second reading, from Paul's letter to the Philippians, chapter 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. And so we are here doing just that. Years ago, it was 1996, I had the opportunity to go to Rome. I went to visit a priest friend who was on a sabbatical. I was there for about a week. Got to see a lot of wonderful things. One day, I went on my own to the Vatican Museum. But I had only a short amount of time, a window of time of maybe about 2 hours from where I was staying to getting back. So actually, I had less time in the museum itself. But if I didn't go at that time, I wouldn't be able to go at all. So I went. I wish I would have had all day. I wish I would have had 3 days to see everything and to read everything. It was an incredible place. But I had to go quickly through the route of the museum and try to absorb as much as I could. It was almost disgraceful. Near the end of the route, as I recall, was the Sistine Chapel, which I wanted to see. But because I was going so quickly, I almost passed right through it. If any of you have been to the Sistine Chapel for the first time, at least what happened to me is I was surprised. I was expecting or imagining a much larger room. When I went through, I thought it was really I knew I was going to go into the Sistine Chapel, but I thought that this was like the antechamber. So my head's down, I'm going straight, and I almost passed right through it. I had to step back and stop and look up. And then I was overwhelmed. An incredible masterpiece from Michelangelo. My friends, that's what Gaudete Sunday is really about. We're already in our third week of Advent. And we're still very busy. We don't have much time left. We still have to buy our presents. We haven't even got our Christmas cards out yet. We have deadlines to meet and activities to attend. Before you know it, we're going to pass right through Advent and we're going to be at Christmas. Today is about stepping back and stopping even for a moment and looking up and rejoicing because the coming of Christ is almost here. That great anticipation which fills us with joy. Not only the birth of Christ, but the coming of Christ in our hearts now. And the coming of Christ in the final day. Step back. Stop. Look up. And rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. You know, when Paul said that, which we heard from the second reading, it wasn't some Pollyannic thing. Paul, when he said this, when it was written, he was in prison. His letter to the Philippians, to the Ephesians, and Colossians are referred to as the prison letters. He was chained in a dungeon cell. At this point in his life, he had experienced 3 shipwrecks. He had been stoned, and I'm not talking about the Colorado kind of stoned. This is real rocks that were thrown on him. He was scourged 5 times, beaten many times in addition. He was the cause of riots and death threats. And now he's in a dungeon, waiting his fate, almost certain death. And he says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. He was made for joy. How could he rejoice if not for that joy that can only come from God, that is independent and separate from anything of this world or in this world, and that nothing in this world can take away? That's the kind of joy that motivated him to rejoice. It wasn't dependent on any of the circumstances of life. And that word, my friends, is also used for public celebration. It's the same word that was used by the Romans for their pagan gods, even for the demigod Caesar. It was meant as a public celebration. So Paul is using this in context. Here he is in this cell, and he's thinking time and place. He wants to publicly rejoice and celebrate. And so we are doing that right now, in context, in this time and place. On Gaudete Sunday, we are publicly celebrating, rejoicing, motivated by that joy that only God can give, because you were made for joy. Rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. You know, I remember reading a story it was a true story, about an Israeli soldier. He was on patrol in the occupied territory of the Palestinian region. Suddenly, he felt a rock hit him on the back. And then a second one. And a third one. He turned around quickly, and he had his gun mounted, ready to fire. And he looked at the end of his barrel, and there were 3 kids, little Palestinian children, throwing rocks at him. And he thought to himself, what am I going to do? I can't shoot these little kids, but I can't let them continue throwing rocks on me either. Then he had an idea. He put down his gun, and he picked up 3 of the rocks that were thrown at him, and he began to juggle. All of a sudden, these children forgot about throwing rocks, They weren't angry anymore. They were mesmerized. And he did a few tricks, and the kids started to laugh. And then he did a grand finale, and they applauded. And he took a profound bow, and he walked away. You were made for joy. Not for anger, not for hatred, not for fear, for joy, for peace, for hope. As St. Paul says, may the peace of God, which is beyond all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Jesus Christ. So rejoice in the Lord always, my friends. I too say it again. Rejoice.